The sun died, right in the middle of the sky, in broad daylight, and ancient people watched it happen with their own eyes, certain their entire world was ending. Twice in history, that exact moment got royal astronomers executed for failing to predict it, not for treason, not for corruption, for missing it. But here's the question I want you to hold on to, because we don't answer it until the very end. If every ancient civilization saw the sun die and completely lost their minds, how did one single man eventually stop an entire war using the exact same terrifying sky? Keep that in your head. We call it a solar eclipse. Ancient people did not. In China over 4,000 years ago, two royal astronomers named Shi and Ho had one job: warn the emperor before the sky went dark. They missed it. Some accounts say they'd been drinking, and when the sun vanished with zero warning, the entire kingdom panicked, convinced a celestial dragon was swallowing their sun whole. The astronomers were beheaded. That's not a myth. That's a real recorded government execution for missing a science problem. And China wasn't alone. Almost every civilization on Earth, completely independently, landed on the exact same terrifying idea. Something was eating the sun. In China, a dragon. In Korea, two mythical dogs. In Norse mythology, a wolf named Skull, who'd been chasing the sun since the beginning of time and on that day, finally caught it. The response, almost everywhere, was identical. Make noise, bang drums, scream, fire arrows into the sky, anything to scare the beast off before it finished the job. Because if the sun didn't come back, nothing else mattered. So what actually happens to a society when its sun god appears to be dying in real time? In Mesoamerica, the Maya had some of the most advanced astronomy on Earth. They could predict eclipses years in advance using calendars recorded in the Dresden Codex. And they still panicked every single time. To the Maya, an eclipse meant the sun had been physically broken, not hidden, broken. So Maya rulers responded the only way they knew how: bloodletting. Kings and priests would pierce their own skin, sometimes their tongues, and offer their blood directly to the sky, trying to heal a god they believed was actively bleeding out above them. The Aztecs went further. They believed the sun was being eaten alive, and descended into full-scale pandemonium. One Spanish missionary who witnessed a total eclipse in the 1500s wrote something almost too disturbing to say out loud. People became hysterical and started sacrificing anyone they could find with light skin or fair hair, convinced it would stop demons from descending and devouring everyone. Think about that for a second. An entire population, so certain the world was ending, that murder became a reasonable response. But keep this in mind, because it matters later. Every one of these cultures had the same problem. Not one of them could answer a single simple question. Why was this happening? Different continents, different centuries, different gods entirely. Same exact fear. Not every culture responded with panic. Some responded with war. The Inca believed a solar eclipse was their sun god's open display of rage. So instead of hiding, their leaders tried to figure out exactly what they'd done wrong and offered sacrifices specifically chosen to match the god's anger. The Ojibwe people of the Great Lakes believed the sun had been physically extinguished, snuffed out like a fire. Their solution? Fight back directly. They shot flaming arrows into the sky, trying to relight the sun themselves. Now here's where it gets strange. Across the Arctic, the Inuit believed the sun and moon had become temporarily diseased. So their response wasn't noise, and it wasn't violence. It was concealment. They covered up everything of value: their tools, their food, themselves, convinced that the eclipsed light itself could infect anything left uncovered. But one culture broke the pattern completely. The Batamaliba people of West Africa didn't see the eclipse as an attack at all. Their oral tradition says two ancestral foremothers, furious at villagers who wouldn't stop fighting each other, deliberately extinguished the sun and moon, just to scare everyone into making peace. So while most of the ancient world was screaming, bleeding, and sacrificing, one culture used the exact same terrifying sky to do something almost nobody else did. They stopped fighting each other and made up. Hold on to that idea, because it's about to happen one more time, with the whole thing on the line. Remember the question from the very start? How one man stopped an entire war using the same sky that terrified everyone else? Here it is. The ancient Greeks, specifically the philosopher Thales, had already figured out how to predict a solar eclipse, and when he called one correctly, It fell in the middle of an actual war. Two armies, mid-battle, watched the sky go dark exactly when Thales said it would. And they stopped fighting, on the spot. Both sides, convinced this was too large a sign from the gods to ignore, laid down their weapons and negotiated peace. One man, understanding a pattern everyone else thought was divine wrath, ended a war without throwing a single additional spear. That's the part that should actually unsettle you. Every single culture we just talked about, the executions, the bloodletting, the sacrifices, the flaming arrows, all of it came from the exact same root cause. Not stupidity, not superstition for its own sake, a total absence of information. They weren't irrational, they were pattern matching with the only data they had, and concluding, reasonably, that the single most powerful thing in their entire world was dying above their heads. We know now it's just the moon, briefly, perfectly aligned. A geometric coincidence, not an omen. But next time you see people online panicking over something they don't understand, ask yourself how different that really is from a kingdom banging drums at the sky. The sun was never dying. We just didn't know enough yet to be calm.